Cops caught lying about tracking a woman who committed the high crime of taking a pill, an abortion pill. This is a hell of a story. I'll put him up, Johnson County Sheriff's Office. Here we go. Texas officers have been caught in a lie after a nationwide search for a woman who took an abortion pill. You heard me right. Nationwide search for a woman who took an abortion pill. Police in Texas, led by a county sheriff, later charged with an unrelated felony sex crime, lied about their motive for using artificial intelligence-powered surveillance technology to search for a woman who allegedly self-administered a medication abortion. New documents obtained by 404 Media and Electronic Frontier Foundation revealed this on Tuesday. I'm going to give you the background. In May, 404 Media's Joseph Cox and Jason Keebler reported that the Johnson County Sheriff's Office tapped into 83,000 automatic license plate reader ALPR cameras manufactured by Flock Safety while conducting a nationwide search for an unnamed woman who authorities said took abortion medication in alleged violation of a 2021 state ban that empowers anti-abortion vigilantes to sue anyone who aids or abets the medical procedure. Already in the same law, on top of an insane law. So since the law's passing and the right-wing U.S. Supreme Court's overturning Roe v. Wade and Dobbs v. Jackson, a women's health organization the following year, Texas has passed additional forced birth laws banning nearly all abortions, as well as targeting providers who may mail abortion pills from other states. According to Cox and Keebler, Johnson County Sheriff's deputies access these cameras, Flock cameras, in states where abortion is perfectly legal, including Illinois, including Washington. Johnson County Sheriff Adam King told 404 Media at the time that his department searched for the woman because, quote, her family was worried that she was going to bleed to death. And we were trying to find her to get her to a hospital. Put up the, yeah. Johnson County Sheriff Adam King issued a statement claiming it was for the woman's safety. Quote, we weren't trying to block her from leaving the state or whatever to get an abortion. End quote. Another quote, it was about her safety. That's all. They're just trying to protect the little lady. Put him back up again. Sir, your statement comes across as foolish as your mustache and cowboy hat. King's office forced birth advocates and Flock Safety subsequently attempted to gaslight those who reported that deputies searched for the woman as part of a probe into potential violations of state laws. However, new documents and court records obtained by the digital rights group Electronic Frontier Foundation and shared with 404 Media show that Johnson County Sheriff's deputies initiated a, quote, death investigation of a non-viable fetus and discussed prosecuting the woman for allegedly self-administering an abortion. Put the sheriff back up. So that guy said they wanted to simply be an advocate for the family and a protector for the woman. Had nothing to do with a criminal dynamic. However, the documents exposed that he is a liar. In recent years, Anti-abortion advocates and prosecutors have increasingly attempted to use, quote, fetal homicide and, quote, wrongful death statutes originally intended to protect pregnant people from violence to criminalize abortion and pregnancy laws. These laws, which exist in dozens of states, establish legal personhood of fetuses and can be weaponized against people who end their own pregnancies or experience a miscarriage. And remember, at Indisputable, we talked about this in much detail. We've debated this with conservatives on the record, from the Old Testament Christian context to the modern doesn't make sense context to the medical context. And remembering those conversations, one of the dynamics that came up was, okay, so if you have personhood at conception, does the man have to start paying child support then? Are insurers required to insure at conception? I mean, the laws can continue. But see, those would be congruent, those laws would be congruent to a good faith basis that you actually believe that this begins at conception. As a matter of fact, that means we need to tack another 9 months to everybody's birthday because you are now 9 months older if the personhood begins at conception. I can go on and on with this all day. The insanity of some of these laws would not even allow a child who was sexually violated at 11 years old to seek a medical procedure. How insane is that? And to those who are the Bible thumpers that came to debate me on the topic, when I brought up the scripture that dealt with if a woman is pregnant and a man strikes that woman and that fetus is miscarried or there is blood that spills from the fetus, the man has to pay a fine based on the husband's decree. But that same scripture that you all use says, for the sin of murder is death. So obviously, even in your own Christian text, that wasn't considered murder. I'm going back to your scripture. These are the debates that we had over all of these ridiculous laws happening 2021 and beyond. So here we are. Here we are, a sheriff abusing his power, abusing his authority. Why? Because they believe it's government intrusion to wear a mask to protect other people, but it's not government intrusion when the government tells a woman what she can and cannot do with her own damn body. That's why. In fact, the new report from Pregnancy Justice found that in just the first 2 years since the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs, prosecutors initiated at least 412 cases bringing charges against pregnant women with crimes related to pregnancy, loss, or birth, most under child neglect, endangerment, or abuse laws that were never intended to target pregnant people. 9 cases, including allegations around individuals' abortion, such as possession of abortion medication or attempts to obtain an abortion, instances just like this one. Before I finish this story, I know people will ask, well, Doc, what's your personal view on it? And I've said this on record, I'll say it again, because it is a touchy subject, I get it. I take mine from a creationist standpoint, the symbolism of the garden, that man did not become living until God did something, and that was breathed into man, and that's when man became a living soul. So until you take that first breath, according to the creationist doctrine, that is when life enters that body. Now, that's just my point of view. It doesn't have to be yours, but it is informed through a context of text. In an unrelated case, that same sheriff has now been arrested by his own deputies and now faces charges, a new charge for lying to a grand jury. Texas sheriff arrested by his own deputies, booked in his own jail in August after accusations of harassing female employees and retaliating against whistleblowers, now faces a third charge of aggravated perjury, though a judge has ruled he may return to work under strict conditions while awaiting trial next year. Fox 4 Dallas reported that Johnson County Sheriff Adam King, already indicted on sexual harassment and retaliation charges, was hit Thursday with a third aggravated perjury count stemming from allegations he lied to a grand jury. King pleaded not guilty to all charges in his arraignment on Thursday. You must be one of the worst sheriffs on the planet, sir. You were arrested by your own deputies because you decided, instead of criminalizing citizens, you decided to be criminal against people that worked at the sheriff's office. They locked your ass up and they showed you who was really in charge. Isn't that something? All right, dear brother, thoughts here.
I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add. I will maybe bolster your points a little bit. I think that you're completely correct on that verse you were talking about. And I couldn't remember the book. It is Exodus 21, if people are interested. And also, the entire debate around abortion goes back to the Greeks, and there were the Stoics and the Aristotelians, and there was the Pythagoreans and the Epicureans. The Stoics were the ones who I would say fell in line with what you mentioned, which is kind of the breath of life, the pneuma. The birth happens when you take that first breath in, which was adopted by Judaism, and then Christianity argued about it for hundreds of years, and they eventually landed more or less on the Aristotelian view, which is that it happened around the time of the quickening, and it wasn't until the 20th century that Protestants and evangelicals took up this more Pythagorean view, which is that it's murder at the time of conception. So I think there's like having some kind of historical context for this debate can at least give you some roots when you're talking about it, because it's so easy. As you mentioned, it's a hot button issue. Learning about it, seeing that there's always been a debate around it. There's always been differing perspectives, and figuring out that like maybe people who come forward with 100%, this is what I believe, and everyone else has to believe it too. Maybe that's not always the right direction to go. So that's my take on it.
Man, well said. And thank you for the additional historical context. And you are completely correct. Just like traditional marriage is not between a man and a woman based on actual tradition. There's a tradition much older than that one.